Hi, I'm George Celios with Fine Scale Miniatures, and you are watching What's Neat This Week with Ken Patterson.
Look at all the wonderful people we have here tonight. Mike, you're wonderful.
Thanks.
What year was that?
We got Dave Weber, Robert Stears sitting next to me here.
Pennies has come a long way, you know.
I know, right?
He said there's video footage.
Look at all these great people sitting out there. Isn't this awesome? Are you guys ready?
We're ready.
All right.
Yeah.
Somebody give me a countdown and let's have some fun tonight, because I know we are.
3, 2, 1.
The What's Neat This Week video podcast is supported by enthusiastic model railroaders just like you.
These are anyway.
Further support is provided by Microengineering, keeping you on track with quality products for 55 years. Check out their website at www.microengineering.com. Order from your local dealer or order direct by calling 1-800-462-6975. And by American Limited Models, the relentless pursuit of accuracy. Check out their website at AmericanLimitedModels.com.
Additional support for What's Neat This Week is brought to you by Soundtracks. Two-time winners of Model Railroader Magazine's Reader's Choice Award for Favorite Sound Decoder, and also miscellaneous sound with our sound card decoder. Now be sure to check out what all the fuss is about at soundtracks.com, and also check out our YouTube videos at Soundtracks Videos on YouTube. Now, as a special thank you to What's Neat video watchers, we're going to offer free shipping, so be sure to use the checkout code WNTWFREE for free shipping on your purchase at soundtracks.com.
Further support is provided by the NCE Corporation, the power of DCC. Visit their website at ncedcc.com. And thank you for supporting the What's Neat This Week podcast. This is the What's Neat This Week, show number 154 for May 1st, 2021. I'm your host, Ken Patterson, the host of the What's Neat show over at Model Railroad Hobbyist Magazine, and Campbell Rice is running camera for us tonight. And Campbell, you did a great how-to. All the comments are fantastic. We love it when you do that. Your scenery from start to finish, so check it out, April's video. Now tonight we've got a lot of folks that have come from out of town, and Mike is not one of them. Starting over here, I've got my favorite Mike Budde. Hello, Mike.
Hey, everybody.
Sitting right next to me, I've got Robert Stears from San Juan Model Company. Hello, Robert.
Ken,
Welcome.
pleasure.
Also tonight, I've got, and it's not going to be Sugar Fire, but it's going to be Dave Weber.
Hello, Ken.
And as you remember, Dave Weber is the gentleman who's here with his son tonight and his father that built those beautiful 89-foot large-scale flat cars that we talked a few months back on about the show, and he came all the way from Pennsylvania to show them off to us in person tonight. We've got some great footage. I've also got your son, TJ Weber, with us tonight. Hi, TJ.
Hello.
Awesome to have you. You've got some neat stuff to talk about too, because in fact you're manufacturing some HO scale cars that are pretty trick that you were pretty impressed with.
Very impressed.
Now I know it sounds crazy, but since the last show, we've got leaves on all the trees outside and it's beautiful, but we had some hamster flakes coming down the other day. I mean, it was snowing on the Garden Railroad. I ran some footage just to show off from the show, the great big flakes landing on green leaves. Not normal for us, but heck, you got snow just this week in Colorado,
Yes.
didn't you?
Montana.
Montana. Another thing I want to say is don't forget that Stephen Mantia's train show is coming up on May 15th. That's just from today, 15 days away. I'll put it up on the screen. After the Storm train show that's going to be held at the Merrimack Elks Hall, 1515 Miller Road in Imperial, Missouri. Come hang out. We're going to be there. Some of the What's Neat crowd is going to hang out and hope that Steve has a good show. Congratulations, and thank you for doing that, Steve. It's one step to getting back to normal, which is kind of a wonderful thing. Now, I did a photo shoot this week, and Robert, you were wonderful enough to send me these beautiful HO scale tank cars that we have on the table. These are GATC tank cars as delivered, and these are from American Limited,
Yes.
your model company. And I'm going to start with, and I'm going to show you photographs of all of these because I shot them outside, the Northern Pacific number 102000. This is a beautiful model. It's got friction-bearing trucks on it, and it's got a date on it that showed that it was new in 1949. But these cars span the gamut to current day, and I'm going to explain that as we go along here. Now, the first three cars that I'm describing, as you'll see, have all got etched metal walkways on them. Absolutely beautiful detail. The second car is Northern Pacific number 102018. The Interbay Washington car. And tell me, Robert, what did that mean, the Interbay Washington? I was curious when I read the box.
These are cars that were assigned to Montana Rail Link, or MRL, for fuel, diesel fuel supply. They would send these to the Interbay Washington refinery just south of Seattle, fill them up with diesel fuel, and bring them back to the Montana Rail Link, which is a branch of BNSF across the state of Montana.
And the reason you know this is because you've done all the research and development for all of the models that are coming out under the name American Limited, along with Stephen Priest. Isn't that right?
That is correct. Stephen's been a great help, as have a couple other folks.
We love Stephen and Cynthia. We've had them on the show before, and we look forward to having them on the show again. They're absolutely great people. And a shout out to Joel. What a fantastic son you guys have got. The next car I've got is the SP&S Spokane, Portland, and Seattle Railway. Did I get that right? Spokane, Portland, and Seattle?
Yes.
And this is a late service car, as it was marked in the box. Car number 38611. I've actually got some video of this freight car, I believe. But this car comes with decals. That's really what I want to mention about that, because you guys have had the foresight to know that people might want to change the era of the freight car and do various things to it that only the SP&S allows you to do.
Indeed. The SP&S Historical Society, as well as David Turner of the Society, have been a huge help in understanding these tank cars and their decoration. Photographs of these 20 tank cars, which were also built in 1949, are very, very hard to find. And we produced a series of these different car numbers and different liveries, but we wanted to give the SP&S modeler, and the SP&S, of course, is a division of the Great Northern. You give these modelers a chance to do all the different variations of these tank cars, including almost as delivered up to very late maintenance away. So we also give the modeler a chance to add several more car numbers to this collection.
That's awesome. And the next car, and I love it when we do this on the show, we get to see lots of eye candy and a lot of beautiful freight cars shot in outdoor sunlight. I've got the ATSF, and this one's got Santa Fe lettering on it, and it's as delivered, and this is car number 98056. And this has got the orange identification stripes on it that actually state and show that it is marked to carry journal oil, because a lot of these freight cars were designed just for that. This car has no walkways on it, and it's got roller-bearing trucks that actually spin, which is a really nice detail that you've added to these.
Thank you.
The next model we've got is a Santa Fe lettered ATSF, and that's 101-138. And that's as delivered, and this has got a date on it of 782. This is more updated modern era where the car's been used for current service. And this has got a gray stripe on it, which is marked, that shows that this car held the diesel fuel. So what the Santa Fe Railroad would do is they would check the commodity prices of diesel fuel across the country, and they had 200 of these ready to go to be shipped to any one given refinery where they got the best deal. And then they would ship these cars out to the various locations to refuel. Am I getting
Correct.
that right?
Absolutely. And then bring them all back to the various duty stations, drop off the fuel, and then send them right back out again.
That's really cool, and that's got the gray stripes on it. The next one I've got doesn't have gray stripes. This, in fact, has orange and gray stripes on it. ATSF as delivered, number 98079. And this has got friction-bearing trucks on it, and it's marked right on the freight car that it's designed to carry solvent, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, these company cars, there are numerous different color bands, so to speak, on the domes and on the ends, to really make it clear what the car was to be used for and what not to put in the car, and also I think to identify the car if there is an accident, and that's exactly what is in it. This particular type of service car obviously carried solvent, as you said, and there are probably just a couple of these cars, maybe less than a dozen or so.
That's amazing that you guys are creating that. I mean, the modelers are going to absolutely love the finite detail on these cars. The last one I want to show off, you brought with you today, and I'm very happy that you did. In fact, as soon as you got here, we started shooting photographs of this BNSF, and this is the fire suppression water car. It's got red ends on it. It hasn't got walkways. In fact, it's got a pipe on it that you explained to me. What's that pipe do along the bottom?
That is a safety pipe that if somebody is up on the top of the car or up trying to deal with the manway and they slip down or slip off the ladder, that bar keeps them from falling underneath the car, which could be really, really bad.
That's absolutely beautiful. And as he explains that, you're watching this gorgeous outdoor video that we shot of this car. Set up kind of a cool shot for this one with a building in the background, the BNSF vehicle right there, and the guy checking out the car, doing an inspection. I love it when photo shoots are fun. So thank you very much for that.
My
now
pleasure.
you've got some other cars here that you brought, the San Juan Model Company has done, and that's these larger O-scale cars. And we're going to start with the Continental Oil Company car, and in fact they all are that. But the first one was built, as you explained to me, in 2 of 27. And it's got the reporting marks on it, CONX.
Yes, these are a pretty unusual. These are a pretty unusual type of tank car on the narrow gauge that traveled in Colorado and northern New Mexico. These were built for Conoco by GATC, General American Tank Car Corporation.
Yes.
I designed these based on the actual shop drawings and the GATC order from Conoco. There are 4 different variations depending on the time. These are all pre-production models, so there's been some changes that we've had that are pretty small. But these are all numbered car number 36, and these illustrate how the car was lettered throughout its service life. 1927, late 1920s, early to mid 1930s, and at the far end, late 1930s through 1945 when they were sold to Mexico.
Let's talk about this second car here. You said they had
Yes.
special graphics put on it because they wanted to juice up. As the second owner bought Conoco, they wanted to juice it up a bit, didn't they?
Yes, they did. And these early lettering styles, pardon me, there are only a couple known photographs of these. But based on some computer work and an understanding of how the fonts fit on the prototypes, I was able to design these different lettering styles for the early Conoco tank cars, that is late 20s cars. Conoco built these in the late 20s. They built these, and then the company had a corporate upheaval, so to speak. And the new owners said, "That's nice, but we want these."
Right.
And it's a much more, it's a much fancier railroad Roman that I think was designed to really be eye-catching compared to the other really plain black, dirty tank cars of the era.
Right. The next wide frame, tall dome freight car that we're going to talk about is the silver one. I shot that one outside. Beautiful sun. This was done in the mid-30s. And you said they wanted to paint it that silver and aluminum with the green lettering because it further stood out from the rest of the tank cars in the fleet.
Correct. These Conoco painted both its standard gauge and its narrow gauge tank cars in Colorado. This aluminum color with a dark green Conoco logo and then black other lettering. This green, this is a pre-production model. This green's a little too green, so we've had them darken it up significantly. Again, these color choices came directly from the Conoco Oil Company order to GATC, so we know that we're on the mark. This style is rarely photographed. Indeed, we've never found a true color photograph of these silver cars in narrow gauge, but the standard gauge cars are a very dark green. Many of these cars were painted like this until basically the beginning of World War II.
That's awesome. The last car we've got is from the late 30s and into the 40s. It's going back from silver into black. Conoco on the side. It's got the white logo on it.
This was the final American Conoco tank car livery, both for standard gauge and narrow gauge. And this is probably the most familiar to folks who are in narrow gauge. There were 20 of these cars. They all had the same logo. They all had the same lettering, so to speak. Photographs of some are quite common, other photographs are quite rare. These were assigned to specific railways: Denver Rio Grande Southern, Colorado and Southern. And specifically, Ken, it's important to note that these did not carry oil. These came from the refineries in Farmington, New Mexico and Denver, Colorado, and they carried gasoline, kerosene, etc. to the small mountain towns of Colorado and basically northern New Mexico.
You're absolutely right. No, I've studied the history, dude. You've seen all my narrow gauge books. I fell in love with narrow gauge when I got Blackstone Models as an account, and I read about the history, and I couldn't help myself. I wanted to model that 15-mile-an-hour intense running because it was. Now, you made me do something different here. I've told people for years, I'm going to show you a shot. Here's all my dioramas out in the front yard because I cleaned the garage out one day, and I laid them all out there. There's probably 30 or 50 different dioramas in every single scale: large scale, N scale, HO scale, 3-rail O scale, 2-rail O scale, HON3. I told you, I said I've shot every scale there is in the world, and I can shoot your stuff too. And guess what? These cars wouldn't fit on any of the track I've got on any of the dioramas. And microengineering, God love them, and we do, don't make HON 36-inch track. ON 36-inch track. Did I get that right? They don't make O scale 36-inch narrow gauge track. I didn't know that. But you guys do. But I didn't have your track here, and these cars had to be shot like 5 minutes ago tomorrow morning. So what I literally did was I started to build a new diorama for that scale. And I want to show you some video clips of what I went to do it to, because I've never actually explained in detail on this show how I build dioramas, and I kind of wanted to cover that. And with this one, I had to lay every individual tie. I happen to have O-scale ties and narrow gauge here, one by one, glued them down with wood glue right on top of the pink foam. And then I came along and I put the ties, the rail onto the ties, okay? And I didn't have a track gauge for that gauge, so I'm using a set of trucks off of your one of your cars, and I was able to just lay that down. I glued it down with contact cement that takes all the guesswork out of it and makes it super simple, so that after everything's dry, I can go back and spike the rail down and it would stay there, even in the sunlight. So I did do that. I put a lot of dirt on the diorama, and I wet the entire scene with Woodland Scenic cement, and I let it dry overnight. The next morning when I woke up, I had to shoot it that afternoon, so I went and spiked the track down, the rail down. This is code 70 microengineering that I used, which would be really light rail, but it looked great. And then I added some vegetation and spiked everything. Everything was ready for the photo shoot. And then in fact, we did do this really nice photo shoot outside. I took it outside and I shot all the ON3 cars on this. It was fantastic weather. Also this week, because Dave Weber and his son were coming here, I had to get the Garden Railroad whipped into shape. So as you'll see, the grass is cut, the Garden Railroad is all just as pretty as it can be, so that we could run the large-scale models that were going to be here this week, and it's just been fantastic weather. I mean, it's just trimmed, vegetation killer, the whole bit. Everything works. Even did some rewiring at 2 o'clock in the morning. And then on another night at 2 o'clock in the morning, I won't tell you that I was in the backyard in my robe, because I replaced all the outdoor lighting on the layout too, so that at night when we go out there for the bonfire tonight, you guys will be able to see where you're walking on the trails. So those little 12-volt halogen, are they halogen? They're LED lights that you get at the hardware store. I put 5 or 6 new ones out there, and I couldn't help it. I had to go out there and shoot photographs of this at night. So I'm probably sharing those photographs with you as I've been speaking. The Garden Railroad is a fun place to hang out at night when it's lit, the trains run, and I can't wait to talk about the cool stuff that you brought, because you brought some really, really neat models, and we have a lot of nice B-roll to shoot. So with that, let's take a break and find out what Mike Budde brought tonight.
Well, I brought this same building that I've been working on for a couple weeks. It's from RS Laser Kits in Lockwood, Missouri. That's outside of Springfield. And I was kind of apprehensive about starting an N-scale kit because, it's just so small. I'm not used to it. But anyway, I finished the back of it with the balconies and the stairs and everything, and
Oh yeah, it's coming.
You gotta build the stair treads individually, put them on the frames and everything, and it was kind of tedious, but it went pretty quickly. So these cars are from Classic Metalworks, a new 1973 Chevy truck, which will find homes on a lot of people's layouts. I'm glad to see some 70s vehicles coming out, and the way they made it the grill and bumper are a separate piece, so they're gonna update them and make other years through the 70s of these. So since the yellow paint doesn't match real well on this one, I'm going to paint this one white and make it into a South Portion Bell service truck because I don't have a 73 Chevy yet. But anyway, here's what the two-tone blue and white one looks like. The paint looks pretty nice. I already took the wheels off of this because I was going to put some different wheels on. Wheels are the weakest part of it. So anyway, I'm done. Go ahead.
Mike, people love it when you show off your models. You work all week on this stuff, and it's amazing what you bring here all the time.
Well, thanks.
I know. Look at those beautiful big cars you got in front of you. I bet
Yes.
you've been foaming over those for the last few minutes.
Yeah, they're
You
very
know what
nice.
each one of those are. And Dave Weber and his son TJ brought those. And before we talk about them, I want to make a mention that I didn't do. On the table here, all of those large O-scale Conoco tank cars that we talked about, those wide frame tall domes, he also makes them at HON3, my Blackstone
here.
scale. I know. He put those on my layout today and I got all excited. It's like, oh, these are really cool, but they don't run on my track. But these do. Oh my God. Next to the brass ones, next to the Blackstone, you talk about the variety of tank cars now that are available. It's pretty cool that you guys made that. What else would you like to add to that?
Well, there are 10 different numbers of each car in each scale respectively. Each number has each of these different lettering styles, and we've had a great amount of interest in these. One thing I do want to mention, Ken, about the O-scale or O-scale narrow gauge, pardon me, is that each of these cars comes with ON3 wheels as well as ON30 wheel sets.
Oh, so they'll
Nice.
run
So
both.
They'll run both. So I'm sorry
These
that I
right
didn't
here.
bring
Those,
correct.
these cars.
These
So
cars.
you could run these, for the guys wanting Bachmann ON30, you can also make these work with your layout.
Absolutely. And the wheel sets just, they come in, you can change them really easily.
I'm glad you brought that up. I had no
Yeah.
idea about that.
I've
Good.
never seen an underframe like that. Is that unique to this tank car or what?
For this particular type of tank car, yes. These were these were basically designed for standard gauge, and were then redesigned or repurposed, so to speak, by Conoco and redesigned as narrow gauge cars. Actually, we had a very interesting process with the Chinese builders on this, in that, of course, you're sending designs and
Right.
plans and photographs, and they would write back and say, that can't be, nobody would build a tank frame like that. And I'd say, well, I know, but they did. And they would say, well, no, they didn't. They couldn't have. Nobody would ever do that. We finally sent them the shop drawings. We sent them all this and said, do it, please. And they
Yeah.
did. But it's a very unique design for these cars with the tall dome, the very
Right.
wide frames. Why the tall dome? We're not really sure, except that, of course, these cars were basically loaded to fullness, so the stuff would not slosh around. And perhaps the tall dome was necessary because of expansion, going from
Right.
maybe 3,000 feet in Farmington or so up to almost 11,000
Right.
feet in Leadville to account for the expansion of the petroleum products in the car. But no, these are very accurate, well running, and a lot of fun. And we have, as I said, 10 available, and God willing, we'll have 10 more numbers available in the coming future.
Now tell me, you've got in 2018, you and your partners had purchased 5 different model companies in our industry. And I don't
Yes.
have the notes in front of you, but I know you have them memorized because you're the one that helped buy them.
Yes.
Tell me, what companies is it that you have right now?
Well, in 2018, my business partner, Doug Junda, and I, who have known Doug for a long time, we were both model railroaders, scratch builders since elementary school, him in Long Island, me in the suburbs of Denver. And in 2018, we heard that Grant Line, which makes these wonderful styrene and brass, literally thousands of detail parts that were essential part of our hobby, was going out of business.
Did you say essential, like you can't build a trestle without Grant Line
Right.
castings of nut and
Exactly.
bolts?
Yep.
I mean, how many
Exactly.
times have we used those
Oh,
in our
yeah.
lives?
Yes.
And then at the
Or
same
windows,
time,
when you
or
wanna build
windows,
buildings.
and
Yes.
doors, and
Right.
all sorts of little locomotives, all sorts of things. And then at the same time, we heard that this other really nice venerable company, San Juan Car Company, was also coming up for sale, and it had other companies within it. So Doug and I made some flights out to the Bay Area and Los Angeles and talked with the owners, and they're great people. They're wonderful companies. Grant Line, almost 60 years in business. San Juan Car Company, almost 40. Great products, thousands of molds. We cut a deal with both of them, loaded up, 15, 16 semi-trailer trucks.
That's a lot.
Full of
Yeah,
very
it's a
heavy molds and equipment and inventory. Moved it all to our shop in Arvada, Colorado, just north of Denver. And Doug Junda manages that assembly and fabrication shop. And we have basically one umbrella company called San Juan Model Company, which has divisions of San Juan Car Company that makes ON3, ON30 models, such as these tank cars. We have American Limited Models, which has made all sorts of, in the past, and still does, all sorts of trackside diesel implements, trackside signals, all sorts of things, and passenger car diaphragms, as well as N-scale passenger car sides and ends and roofs. And they had brought in a first run of these tank cars, and we said, well, maybe we can expand that. And then we also had San Juan decals that has a very large range of standard and narrow gauge decals. Then we purchased several other decal companies, and then Doug and I have had a company of our own for several years, basically doing stuff that we wanted from laser cutting narrow gauge kits, and that's called that's called the Leadville Shops.
The Leadville Shops, I'm familiar with that.
All of those companies we brought together, and in our point of view, saved those companies, which were profitable entities, but we brought them together, eliminated a lot of superimposed expenses, and saved them so we could continue to build the models we liked, and hopefully a couple thousand or how many other people who are interested will continue to have these parts and things available. And it's also allowed us to expand into importing multiple scale, highly detailed models. So,
and we can't tell you what you're coming out with, but you're coming out with some pretty trick modern freight cars that I'm excited about.
Yes, me too.
Stop! We can't give it away.
it's top secret.
I want to tell you, thank you, Robert. Thank you for what you've done to help the mom and pop companies not evaporate or disappear as retirement age comes. You've done something great for the hobby. Thank you. I mean, you could have invested in Bitcoin and you didn't.
Well, I want to also thank Doug Junda, who is with me, up to my eyebrows with me in this project. We could have gone out and got a Starbucks or something, but what fun is that? That's zero fun. Where this is fun. It's what we know. It's what we like, and we hope that it propels the hobby forward.
I suggest you buy a Summit scale models Starbucks, put it on your layout, and you keep doing what you're doing for us.
Well, you never know. You might see some Starbucks tank cars. You never know if we can get the licensing deal down.
Rock and roll, man. Okay, I got TJ Weber, and I've got his father here, Dave Weber. You guys came all the way from Pennsylvania because you wanted to share not only your large scale, G scale cars, but your HS scale cars. And let's start with the flat cars that we showed off in the show that are in front of Mike right here. I know Mike wants one of those right now.
We can leave it with Mike if you really want one.
Rock and roll, Mikey.
they're
Did you hear that?
pretty
Anyway,
nice, yeah.
tell us about these two different kinds of cars. And Mike, you know about these cars too, don't you? What they are?
Yeah, they're both Bethlehem built cars, like BSH 2022 flush deck car from about 1968.
BFHA 22, BSH 22A, correct?
Okay. And these are F89s that are started around 1963, and they were like the workhorse of the auto rack fleet.
Correct.
And then they gradually moved to the flush deck cars. But you can go ahead and tell us about them.
Yeah, please do.
Nice.
Sure. And we've got a lot of B-roll that we're going to run because his son was running some beautiful Dash 9s outside. I want to talk about all of it at one time, and we can't. So let's just start with the flat cars, Dave. Go
Okay,
ahead.
So this has kind of been our pandemic project. It started out as we're going to build some cars for ourselves. We modeled the Tehachapi Loop in our backyard. And the signature train are the 199 and 991 Santa Fe intermodals, and you got to have flat cars. And I thought we could probably make these out of styrene, and it started out a project for ourselves. And then the pandemic hit. I stopped traveling all the time. I'm home, and we're looking for something to do. And it kind of evolved from there. We started with styrene structure. The underframe is a built-up styrene and rubber kit, and then cast resin. You know, it's familiar. So we take them out in the backyard, and we put them on the railroad, and we start testing them, and they're derailing because they're 37 inches long, and they're too light.
Right.
So I work for a steel fabricator. I says, well, can you cut me some? I said, what's the thinnest material we have? And they said, 16 gauge. It's like, oh, great. Sheet metal for us is like 1/4-inch plate. So I was happy we had 16-inch gauge. So we kind of made like the old Athearn Blue Box. We had the underframe, a slab of steel, and then the plastic top. Solved the tracking problem.
So it added some weight.
Yeah, now our cars are 3.5 pounds.
Okay.
So they're tracking well.
So literally, the top of the car is a piece of steel.
Well, that
let 'em
this is
finish.
the evolution of the design. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, we didn't know what we were doing when we started, and had we known what we know now, we may have not started. So, making the plastic, I was basically making it on the table saw, and controlling the dimensions was difficult. You know, the thousandths of an inch. In the interim, we got a 3D printer, resin 3D printer, so now we can make really nice small parts. So like the ends are 3D printed. But not being able to control the outside dimensions, we end up with a lot of filling and sanding and body putty. And it's like, I think it'd be really neat if I could get these made out of steel.
Okay.
So from my machinery and background in work, I knew you have laser cutting, we can get very precise sheet metal cut, and with CNC bending, really control the dimensions. So I started doing internet research, and I'm coming up companies that do this in like New England and California. It's like, that's probably aerospace stuff. Model railroaders can't afford that. So I found a company in Lancaster County, not far from Stroudsburg Railroad, that does this work, and it was very reasonably priced. And those cars now are steel. The deck is steel. And then the underframe is the resin cast.
Very cool.
And then the ends are 3D printed. So 3D printing, especially in the large scale, it's just another tool in the toolbox of what you can do. And the beauty of these cars is, as Mike said, they started in 1963, 64. TTX is very good at like Monster Garage.
Yes.
Yeah, they turned into so many different things.
They've been used, yes.
And we have a friend we run on his railroad, Ken McCrory. He had a whole train of these in HO, the tube cars. And I just loved those cars. And it's like, I bet if we made those in G-scale, they'd look really good.
They do.
Thank you. So that's 3/4-inch PVC pipe. I got it.
Hey, don't give away all our secrets.
It looks good. He did the ends just right.
If they want to do it, let them. But, we got a ream, and we ream the ends out so it's thin, so it looks like a Schedule 40 pipe. We're mimicking, that's 24-inch diameter pipe in our 1:29 scale, so it's basically oil and gas pipe. The green is the epoxy paint they put on the pipes, and then the ends are rusty. That's where they do the full penetration welds. And then, started going through pictures, like how are these things wrapped? And then one night we just kept looking at pictures, like that's too hard. Oh, that one looks pretty good. Okay, so that is based on prototype pictures, and all the cribbing and the spacing on the cars that came off of TTX. There's a double volume book that was put up by the Pennsylvania Railroad Historical Society on the history of TTX.
Right.
Fabulous books.
That is a good book. That's
Yes.
the Bible.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now,
Yeah.
he showed me those books tonight. Those two
Yes.
books are magnificent. And that has got to go in my book collection. I am going to buy those books after
Well,
I saw
unfortunately,
them.
they're
The
out of-
loads are amazing in it.
I talked to the author, Jim. They're out of print right now, but if people are interested, contact the PRR Historical Society and tell them you're interested in
I
the
met
second
them.
printing.
We met them at an RPM meet, interviewed
And,
them. They were good people.
until I had those books, TTX was very
Yeah.
confused because it's so big and it's broken down. You know, there's pictures of those cars.
Now, you sell these online.
Correct.
What website would folks go to in order to find these cars and be able to purchase them for you, the large-scale flat cars?
OVRailcar.com is where you can find all those.
OVRailcar.com. How
And you
familiar
go-
that looks. I've got that in my computer, and I'm showing that right now.
Yep, and you go to the home page and you'll see that big pipe load right on it.
That's awesome.
Now, how about the trailer?
Now-
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, now that's another story.
Well, you can shorten it up this time.
All right, I'll start it up. Thank you. I am in sales, so I do talk. Of course, you have flat cars, you need trailers.
This is
Right.
a talk show. People
And there is
love
no-
to hear us talk.
And there's not a lot of new product in G scale. This is
Correct.
some of the new product. And I didn't mention, these are all American made. The trucks and couplers are Katie, which are made in Oregon. So-
KD couplers and KD trucks.
Yes.
That's why they rolled so good outside.
Yep, metal KD trucks.
and they basically don't derail. If you have decent track, they don't derail. 'Cause
And my
the-
track is not that decent, and they did fine.
Yes.
There's a lot of undulations. Did you notice
your
that?
tamper hasn't been through over the main line
That
lately.
cement
yes?
moves up and down.
The pipe car weighs 10 pounds, so that has no trouble tracking. But even the flat cars are about 5 pounds because of the steel, and the KD trucks are heavy because they're all die cast.
You guys enjoyed running them out there. We enjoyed watching them run on the Garden Railroad. I do want to show some of the video as you're talking of what we were doing outside, because today was so beautiful out there.
It was actually
were all-
warm out there.
We were just congregating. TJ was running the train, and TJ, you were using a throttle system that I'm unfamiliar with. It looked like you were using a radial throttle, and you guys told me, don't worry about fixing my wiring, but I went ahead and did it anyway to make sure it's going to work, but you weren't using my electric outside.
Nope, I was using batteries. So that's
Batteries.
the CVP products. It's the AirWire system with the T5000 throttle. That's their main throttle. And then they have their G3 decoder, which is their main motor control, which it's now the G4. And then we have a TCS wow sound to make all the noise in them.
Okay, so I filmed you holding up that throttle outside, and tell me what brand name throttle was that again? CVP, you said?
CVP products out of Texas.
That's interesting. And you said that has a range of about 40 feet. So you did follow the train a little bit out there. But when it goes out of range, the train doesn't stop running, which
Nope,
is a
it just
benefit.
keeps going.
Now, we were showing these engines running outside, and they've got sound in them, which is really cool on the Garden Railroad. You said these have got TCS decoders in them. And you mentioned the AirWire 21-pin plug-in decoder that you plug into the TCS decoder. Is that right?
Well, the AirWire has a two-prong output that you go into the input wires of the AirWire, so your red and black wire.
Okay,
And it runs the TCS decoder in tandem.
that worked really well. And about how many hours could you run those outside?
On like your layout, you could probably run those for 5 hours with battery in each engine. 'Cause those are 5 amp hour batteries.
And the nice part is you have a speaker that's this big.
It really
In
makes
each
those
engine.
TCS recordings sound great.
I'll
Yeah,
bet.
It
Through
sounded
those
good,
big
guys.
speakers. Yeah.
And it was fun to film out there. It was fun to just lay in the grass like a kid and shoot some of this video that we're looking at. It was fun. It was just going through the process because we knew what we needed. We knew really what we wanted to show off. And I wanted to make it kind of interesting with some of the shots. That shot we did on the flat car was kind of cool. It came out really good. A lot of fun times outside on the Garden Railroad. It's only going to get better because we're going to light a big old bonfire out there and have some fun later on tonight. And I'll tell you what, is there anything else that we need to cover? I know you brought some little HO scale freight cars. Why don't you tell us about that, TJ?
Yep, so after making the biggest car we can in G-scale, I decided to make the smallest thing I can in HO. So those are Pennsylvania Railroad G38 ore Jennies. So that's the first car the Pennsylvania Railroad made in their own shops in Hollidaysburg as an ore carrying car. Before that, they just used regular hopper cars. So those are purpose-built for ore. The Pennsylvania Railroad ones there on the left and right, the black ones, those come with the PRR cast trucks. They're off of hopper cars that they put they just robbed the trucks off of them. And then the Conrail one in the middle, because those cars ran up into the 90s on
Yeah.
Conrail and in Penn Central, those have Bettendorf trucks, because the Crown cast trucks eventually just fell apart and then they put Bettendorfs on them.
Okay.
So though it's an entirely 3D printed car.
3D printed. Here we go again. That's amazing.
Is that
It is.
how the trailer's made?
Trailer
3D
is
print.
resin cast.
Okay.
So that's using, the techniques
Right.
we're familiar with.
Right.
Some of the underbody details in the trailer are 3D printed.
So
like
the landing gear is 3D printed. The hubs are 3D printed.
Okay.
The tires and the rest of the car are urethane
resin.
castings.
Nice.
You know, Ken, if I could just butt in for a minute, I spent a fair amount of time studying these cars this afternoon,
Yes.
and I can tell you they are superb. Just a brilliant
And so
case of design.
They're going to come out with these as kits at some point and make these available to the public, right?
I hope
Either
so.
kits
I
or
hope so.
maybe a ready-to-run car, probably maybe unlettered, and you can decal them yourself.
HO
we-
scale and G
Yep.
scale both.
Yeah, those are the pre-production ones there. So they have the poke hole covers on them that they put on them. So in the winter they would try to get the ore heated up so they could get it out of the car. That didn't really work great. So those got those poke hole covers all the way down the side of the car. These are taking dimensions from the real ones to do it.
How about that?
Man.
Now, what sort of ore did they carry in these, TJ?
It was a mix of a lot of it was imported in Philadelphia oil, and then it went out to the blast furnaces. And
So
then
it's
also towards the end, it would be stuff they brought in from Ashtabula, Ohio, at the big ore docks.
Is it iron ore?
Yeah, iron ore, and then later some taconite stuff from like the Minnesota ranges.
So living in the Reading area, we saw them coming from Philadelphia, the ore docks, and going up to Bethlehem Steel.
I didn't, but he did.
Yeah, I did, yeah. You were a little young for that, but
Since I didn't exist.
I guess the other, I could shout out to my son. I mean, this is all his work. And, you know, he taught himself AutoCAD Fusion.
Wow.
And you're probably 50 revisions.
There's probably around 250 hours into the CAD design for that one.
And you know,
And a box full of failed prints.
yeah, we
so
can make an entire wreck scene
an ore
of failed prints.
Well, I certainly hope you keep up the great work, because these are truly superb models in my eye.
Absolutely right. And I just happen to be running the pack train.
That's really,
the Pac-Man
thank
train
you. I
tonight.
mean, from a
it's-
person who builds models,
just walked over him.
that's tremendous. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Did I mention there's a Pac-Man train running? I just interrupted you. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, there is a train running. And I cheated. I didn't put talconite in it. I put coal in it because I like the sparkle of black coal. But that's what you guys got to watch running around the room tonight. Best hobby in the world with some of the best people in it. I'm at the end of my list. Is there anything else that we want to talk about or cover? Have we covered it all? I do want folks to go to your website to find and explore all 5 of the companies that you purchased. And I know you didn't mention the website. Tell me what website.
The overall website to get into all 5 companies is sanjuanmodelco.com.
Yes.
And on that site, there are major links to all of these different companies. You can also go directly to AmericanLimitedModels.com. If I could do a quick plug, Montana is a big square state out west without a lot of hobby shops. And I want to just throw out a plug for my friend John Olson at Jim's Junction in Billings, who has a large stock of these and has been a great supporter in our Northern Pacific research endeavors for these cars.
Isn't that awesome? I have never met a person in this hobby I don't like. Everybody does everything they can to support the hobby. Your friend has done that with his hobby shop out there. That's awesome.
It's a great job.
Great big
Yeah, I
square
remember
state.
a few years ago when I first heard about Grant Line going out of business. I don't remember when it was, but it was like a huge blow to everybody. And I never dreamed I'd meet the savior of that company. It's pretty cool.
Well, thank you. All I can tell you that Doug and I, when we heard this together, he called me, and we were both, I think we both heard it the same day, and we were both really angry.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, this will not stand. You know, we're going to do whatever we can to save this company and make it work so we can continue to have the fun that we grew up with. Because it's
Great.
really, you know, it's a lot of fun building
Yeah.
models.
Sure.
I wish somebody would have saved Jordan. Remember the company that made the little
yeah.
buggies and wagons
Right.
and little early automobiles? In
Yep.
fact, the Model T cars
Yeah.
that I used in that one photo shoot.
And the 1940 Ford.
Right on
that
the,
was-
oh my God, dude, check out this scene that I built with all those old Model Ts. I
Yeah.
spent $400 on automotive paint, painting these cars just to create this one shot of the city scene. That was all Jordan models, and that company did not get saved. I believe that one's just gone, and I don't know whatever happened or heard what happened to the dies on that. But you're awesome for doing what you've done so far, and we
Thank
can't
you.
wait to see further what you do for the hobby, because there's always something next.
We'll be back in a couple months with our newest offering scheduled to arrive by Labor Day.
I know, and you're going to hear about that first on the show. I guarantee it, because you are helping us to support our show. We appreciate that as
Thank
well.
you. Thank you.
Now, I've started on June's What's Neat. My deadline is, today's the 1st, so it's supposed to be done in 9 days. Finally, people have asked for so long in readers' comments, Ken, you know, when you do the podcast, you're always seeing glimpses and pieces of the layout that you've built down in the basement. So I'm doing a layout tour of my layout in the June video, because with COVID, I haven't been able to get out and interview anybody out there, but I could interview myself.
A little self-reflection.
So that's what I did. I created a small 28-minute video. I still got a little bit more content to make to update it to current day, but it walks you through the from 2007 to 2014, which is a 7-year span of building this current layout that we've got, because that's when I got the Midwest Valley Modelers layout out of here and finally got to build this layout that you see around the room. So I walk you through the entire tour of my early bluff building of the property here that we live on and how I built a model of that, the Merrimack River, various parts of the layout that are now gone, but I'm going to do an update to this video so it'll be current in what's neat, just to show the evolution of what it is I've built down here and the purpose for building it. Don't want to toot my own horn, but a lot of people have asked, and it's just something we haven't. Everybody's making fun of me. I'm tooting my horn. Guys, this is the best hobby in the world with all of the best people in it. I love them all. We're going to take our NCE power system now, and we're going to start running some trains down here.
All right.
So with that, guys, let's build a bonfire. Yep. Let's run some trains.
Excellent.